Welcome to another episode of Chi Life. I am here with Antonia, who has actually come all the way from the UK to spend some time with me. Antonia is a long white cloud Qigong instructor. She's done a couple of the long white cloud Qigong courses. How has it been doing those courses?
Absolutely life-changing, fantastic. Everybody should do it.
And no gun in this hand. Anyway, so I was walking around showing Antonia around the place where I stay and where we spent some time doing some Qigong together, and we've had some major flooding here lately, and so I was showing her some of the things that have happened with the flooding, and she reminded me actually that this is a really good example of some principles that apply very much to our Qigong practice. So that is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. We've had some pretty major flooding here in Auckland where I live, and so before going to do some Qigong together, I was showing Antonia around the property a little bit and just what the property's like and also what's happened with the flood. And so I was looking over here at this river here, and I was saying, it doesn't normally look like that. It's a bit wider now and the water's a bit higher. And we were talking about that a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, that's actually exactly the analogy that we often use when talking about the organ meridians. Now, of course, the main way we talk about the organ meridians is in the context of simply having them flow in a healthy way so that all of the energy moves through all the tissues of the body and gets to where it needs to go. But then the flip side of that is what happens when there's damage somewhere in the body, and specifically something that interrupts the flow of a meridian. I've actually made a vlog about that not that long ago, so you might want to have a look back at that one as well. I'll put a link, I might even put it on screen or in the description to that one, for some context around this. But what a great opportunity to have a visual of some of these principles, because our organ meridians really do flow very much like rivers. The analogy holds true, like really accurately across a number of different criteria. So before I get to talking about that a little bit more, I'll show you a little bit of footage of the flooding. So this here is the main driveway coming in to the property where I live, the bridge coming over the driveway. And then this is it now, after the flooding's gone down. So you can see the water came up really high. This next shot is a big open plain, a big field, which essentially became an extension of the river, right up over the field. And this is what it looks like now that the flooding's gone down. And you can see probably there's a whole lot of silt that's accumulated and so on. So it was really quite significant. 250 mils in 24 hours, I think is what they said. So that's about a foot for people who work in imperial units, about a foot of rain in 24 hours. It rains a lot here in Auckland anyway, but that is a lot in 24 hours. And yeah, major flooding. And so as a result of that, if we look places like here, the water level is higher. More is not always better though, because you'll also notice the water's not really moving much either. And this is something that happens sometimes when essentially the river, stream/river, it's not a very big river, further down there's a whole lot of branches and things at several points that are blocking up, and even some soil from some landslides that is blocking the river, and it's causing the water to become backed up. And when the water doesn't move, it's really silty at the moment because of the flooding. Eventually some of that will settle out even if it doesn't move, but it's not healthy. The water doesn't stay oxygenated, and nothing will live in that water that doesn't really move. A healthy stream, the water moves through it, and it keeps the water clearer, and things live in it because there's more oxygen, and it moves the nutrients around and all that sort of thing. So at the moment, it's kind of widened the river and raised the level, but this is not the sign of a healthy river. In order for this stream to become healthy again, it's going to need to be unblocked, and that's going to then let the water flow through it. Now, it may unblock or parts of it will unblock by itself, because little by little there is some movement there, a little bit of movement going through, and that will gradually shift some stuff, and then more movement, and little by little it'll open up. But there are some sections where that may not happen by itself, and it's actually going to take a bit of extra work to get in there and move stuff so that the water can move freely. This applies really well to some of the things that happen to our meridians, sometimes when we have injuries in different parts of our body as well. Sometimes as a result of that, if things get blocked up, much like the river spilling its banks, spreading into a surrounding area, the energy can kind of spread into all different areas around it. That's not necessarily a good thing. Again, like more isn't always better. That can lead to things like bruising and swelling and all sorts of issues like that as the energy builds up. Also, the energy can become stagnant, and much as a river becoming stagnant makes things unhealthy, things won't live in it, stagnant energy in our body causes pain, causes disease, and so on. I don't have any good examples right here of the river forging a new path, but that's something that sometimes happens when there's really major flooding as well. Sometimes it will go from one track and it will find a new way through and open up a new pathway. We don't have an example of that. But a couple of these other good examples of things that happen with rivers, and they tie across so well to what happens with our energy in our body. And similarly, you know, often if we have some kind of injury and it blocks up the energy flow, you know, the body is great at healing itself. Often it will be able to, over time, it will be able to get the energy flowing through again. It will clear the pathways by itself. However, well, sometimes we'd like to recover faster, you know, and so it's useful to put some effort in to clear that. Or sometimes if an injury is quite major, it can block things up, and it may not just resolve by itself. It requires some extra effort and some focused work to clear that out. You can do that in more than one way. There are Qigong practices that you can do for yourself that are really good for opening up those rivers, those organ meridians, getting the energy flowing. One of the practices we teach at Long White Cloud Qigong is called 12 Rivers Qigong. It's one exercise for each of those organ meridians, each of those rivers, and it creates balance in that system, so that's a really good one. Or sometimes as well, it can be really helpful to seek help from a skilled practitioner. So that could be an acupuncturist. Acupuncturists are sometimes quite good at using insertion of needles to rebalance the flow of energy through the meridians and to get stagnant energy flowing again and get things going where it needs to. Or much harder to find, but also really useful, someone who is skilled at using Qigong as a clinical treatment and directing the energy to get it flowing, to unblock it, and so on. And that's a way to re-establish that normal healthy flow and get things back to normal faster, or resolve an issue that isn't going to resolve so easily by itself. So yeah, anyway, that's the vlog for today, an opportunity to have some nice visuals of a principle that we talk about quite often in Qigong practices, well, specifically in relationship to the meridians and how they function. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, comment, subscribe, share, all those good things. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.